we'll jump right in and we'll start with a quick round of introductions with everybody here. First off, I'm Mario. It's easier if I just quickly introduce myself, and I'll be the moderator. So you'll hear me kind of asking questions and kind of selecting and kind of jumping in with each person on the panel to answer those questions. I'm the founder and CEO of PartnerPage. So next we'll go to Ethan. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about where you've ran partnerships in the past, where you're doing it now, and yeah, just quickly introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mario. Ethan Lewis, Director of Global Partnerships over at Webflow. Webflow is a no-code design tool for websites. Partnerships for us includes agency partners, tech partners, and the future development partners or integration partners. So really excited to be able to talk about partner strategy for us at Webflow. Previous to Webflow, I ran partnerships specifically for digital agencies at Contentful. So was the first kind of boots on the ground in North America for Contentful, and helped build out the North American partner program strategy there for about 4 years.
Cool. Thanks, Ethan. Awesome to hear about your background in partnerships. I'm just going to work my way down my video feed here. So Emily, you're next up, and then Carolina, I'll get to you after. Emily, could you quickly tell us a little bit about your background in partnerships?
Sure. Thanks, Mario. Hi, I'm Emily. I head up channel partnerships here at Zapier. Partnerships at Zapier are platform partners, of course, as our integrated partners, agency partners, which is kind of the role that I have running that program, and then developer partners. I've been at Zapier for about 3.5 years. Historically was running our platform launch program. So bringing our platform partners from about 700 to about 3,600, which is where we're at today. And then about a year ago, took over our agency program. So been working to build out a full-fledged program for that and scale it over the next few years. Before that, I was actually in sales. I worked for a company called Tune and then a tiny software startup called Heavybit.
Awesome. Thanks for that. That's a staggering number from 700 to 3,600. I can't even fathom that. Appreciate it. So Carolina, you're up next. Could you tell everyone a little bit about your background in partnerships and where you're at, what you did before, and quickly introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm Carolina, and I have been like around 3.5 years at Typeform. I didn't do tech before Typeform. I actually worked in the art industry for a bit. I did some sales in Typeform, and then I built out the agency partner program at Typeform.
Awesome. So we have some great brands with great partner programs here between Webflow, Zapier, Typeform, and experience that kind of goes across the board with Contentful and other platforms that folks have experienced and worked at. So thank you all for introducing yourselves. And with that, I think the introduction period is over and we can jump into the meat, which is the fun part of the panel. So as Ted mentioned before, we had some questions that we sort of planned. And what we tried to do was kind of frame our questions around a traditional marketing funnel of acquiring, activating, and retaining, but with a dotted line to partnerships. So the conversation is around acquiring partners, activating partners, retaining partners, and really how you can do business with them and be successful. What we're really focusing on is the go-to-market strategy of partnerships and all the kind of tactics and strategy that these three folks have learned over the years that worked for them, what didn't work for them. Hopefully we can drain some of that knowledge into everyone who's watching this and or will watch this in the future. So we'll just jump right in here. And, we have kind of a framing question to start with, which is really what came first, the tech partner or the agency, which is actually a joke on the chicken or the egg. And I think one of the stories we talked about in preparation for this, Carolina, you had an interesting one around what you experienced at Typeform. Could you maybe kick us off with the story around how partner programs began over there?
Yeah, sure. So I think that at Typeform, because of the nature of the tool, it made sense for tech partners to come first, just because everybody wanted to push the data somewhere else or embed a Typeform somewhere else. And then with that, it was easier to then build out the agency partner program because the Typeform needed to work very well with other tools like HubSpot and WordPress and all this stuff. So yeah, in our case, it was first tech partners and then agency partners.
Awesome. So tech came before the agency over there. And I think we had a another side of that story was Ethan's experience. Could you maybe tell us what you experienced, Ethan?
Yeah, absolutely. So this predates me, my time at Webflow, but definitely for us historically, agency partners came before our tech integrations or platform partners, really being, kind of the central point for websites, digital experiences. We had lots of customers that were using Webflow to launch those sites. But we really saw very quickly that customers needed help, needed support from outside third-party sources to be able to implement that. So that's where our agency partner program started, and really where we saw a lot of traction initially. Once we had that solid base of customers and we saw a lot of varying use cases across those customers, we started to build out our integration strategy, our roadmap on what third parties we wanted to partner with on that side of the house. So really letting our agencies and customers kind of drive that story once we had a solid foundation there.
So really interesting that both of you had kind of opposite process here. And I think it just kind of goes to the concept of prioritization and resources. You have limited resources and time. Where do you pick to focus first? In the form of Typeform, it was, hey, we have demand to integrate with other products. At Webflow, it was, hey, people need help. So really just having a beat on what's happening in your world as a founder or as someone who's building out partner strategy can maybe give you some insights into where you begin. I imagine most folks building partner go-to-markets are doing it because one area, either the reseller agency side or the technology side, is actually burning, and they're like, we have to do this. So we'll jump into kind of our first set of questions here, and we'll start with Emily, since you're next up on the roundabout. So the first thing we want to do is kind of think through how we're talking about getting partners, the acquisition side of this. And one of the things I love here is, do you build an ideal partner profile? And we hear a lot about, ideal customer profiles. And then there's this question of well, what even is an IPP, an ideal partner profile? Do we use those? Is it really, just sort of an ideal that doesn't actually get exercised? So just love to kick the conversation off with your experience around how do you identify which partners to begin with and define them?
Yeah, for sure. I'll answer this actually from the platform perspective, our technology partners. We have, this was back in 2019. We built kind of an internal lead scoring tool for our platform partners that takes into account just kind of a bunch of different components, kind of what tool is it, what's their Clearbit scores, how many users have requested it, et cetera, and ranks them. So for us, yes, we certainly have an ideal partner profile. We pretty much use we call it the partner index. We use it pretty religiously to prioritize our work. I mentioned that number of 3,600, 3,700 platform partners today. We get about 100 or so a month. So understanding, which partner we should really be spending our time with is critical when we start talking about scale.
And it's probably cheating a little bit, maybe getting ahead here, but I think it's a good time to ask you this question. You get 100 coming in a month. Do you have any hunch about where those 100 come from? You guys are obviously at scale, so what do you think?
I would love to know if you have thoughts. COVID happened and we went from, maybe a couple dozen a month to 100 plus. And these are, I would say, 90% of them, this is their first integration. So something flipped where I think startups started to see Zapier as a solution for their integration problem. And this really was kind of just, all of a sudden skyrocketed. So
wow.
We're not totally sure. There might be a white paper out there for startups. I have no idea, but very, very interesting question for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's a question we'll all be answering around partner programs for the next 10 years as we kind of think through where to acquire partners and how to do it repeatedly. So since you talked a little bit about the technology side right there, maybe Carolina, I can throw it over to you to answer a similar question around the agency side and service providers. How do you kind of define an ideal partner profile, if you do it all? And then what are maybe some of the positive signals when you're engaging with a net new partner that you look for?
Yeah, for sure. So in our case, we actually started with a pilot. We started getting inbound. So I was doing sales before the partner program, and we started getting a lot of inbound leads that were just agencies interested in officializing a partnership with Typeform. So the idea started of, okay, what if we have a partner program? What would this look like? And we decided to start a pilot 6 months just to work together with, I think it was between 15 and 20 partners, keeping it very small. And we started identifying some similar traits of that. And then once we opened it up, we realized that we were getting more and more of the similar traits. So in our case, the ones that were the most successful ones were the ones that created either websites for their customers, or the ones who were HubSpot partners or had other kinds of partnerships like ActiveCampaign, just because for them, they already understood what a partnership would look like and they knew what they were getting into.
Interesting point about they kind of had other partnerships that they were building their business around.
Yeah, but again, I think that in our case, it's also because of the nature of our tool, because our tool, it's super powerful when it's connected to something else and it's not a standalone tool. So probably partners, when you start with HubSpot, you don't need to be partners with anything else for a while, and then you start adding on other tools around it. So yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of just goes to reinforce and reiterate how important it is to know the frameworks for partnerships, but also to apply them to your specific environment. So
yeah,
if you're doing this out there, it's 50% what worked for everyone else and 50% what's going to work for you.
Yeah, there's no copy paste for sure.
Yeah, as much as we wish there was. I mean, a lot of marketing funnels look like they could just be thrown in there, but you have to really dive in there. So maybe, Ethan, this is a good chance to ask you some questions around just thinking about acquisition of partners. When you have like a first meeting with a partner, someone who's interested in working with you, either on the agency side, with what you're doing at Webflow, or previously some of the tech partners you worked with, when you're going into that call, what type of research might you do ahead of time, especially if you want to make sure you knock it out of the park? And what do you bring to that first meeting just to kind of represent what you're doing? Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this also kind of goes back to my days as a direct sales rep, but really trying to understand, what is going to bring value to the other person that you're having this partnership conversation with. By that, I mean, what are they trying to get out of a partnership, whether it's a tech partnership, an integration partnership, or are they looking to partner and be able to sell services around your platform? For tech partners, kind of similar to, Typeform, what Carolina mentioned earlier, are they trying to expand their ecosystem to be able to reach more customers, be able to drive more value to their existing customer base? And how can we maybe come with a prescriptive frame of mind to make recommendations to that? I think that's super important. It helps you stay on topic with your first partnership conversation, and really understanding, where the other person is coming from so that you can speak the same language and identify what type of value you can drive together. The resources that you bring to a first partner meeting, I think it varies so much across different size organizations. Traditionally, partnership teams are very lean and mean, so you might not have a ton of resources that you can bring on day one. Prior to myself joining Webflow, partnerships was being run by one of our founders, so he was not able to really bring a huge team with him every time. Go-to-market enterprise motion was pretty small at that time, so definitely something where as an early stage company, being able to run and incorporate that kind of lean process is definitely beneficial. If you have one or two folks that are focusing on partnerships, being able to span a bunch of different specialties or a bunch of different focus areas, from technical side and understanding of the platform to actually understanding the business objectives and how you can drive that value together as a partner organization. I think it's really, really valuable to have that cross specialization.
Yeah, that's really true, what you were saying about the under-resourced, but big opportunity that is partner go-to-market. And generally you kind of throw someone at it, you're like, hey, you can do a lot, like activate and build the funnel and start building the things. So makes a lot of sense too. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And just digging into our acquisition questions here about getting partners and how to get them from 0 to 1 with you. The next one we have here is, it's kind of like building off of what we asked Emily before. So maybe we'll ask this one to Carolina. And it's about, inbound or outbound partner interest, and how to kind of divide your time and focus. And, obviously if you have a torrent of leads of partners coming in, then yes, like deal with those. But when you think about the recruiting aspect of partnerships, going out and getting more, growing your top of the funnel for this program, maybe Carolina, you could tell us a little bit about what you've done around that front that worked for you, what you did maybe that doesn't work, if you have any particular tactics there, or just like what were some channels for you specifically that were either successful around this or maybe not.
Yeah, for sure. So in our case, it was mainly inbound, but I mean, Typeform, again, because of the nature of the product, it has a huge virality effect. So we have a ton of visitors on our website. We have a huge free user base of even free customers and then paying customers. So for us, at least at the beginning, we didn't need to really do outbound. Then we can do it something a bit more targeted when it comes to getting bigger agencies, the more like traditional agencies. But yeah, inbound worked pretty well for us. Also, I think that the risk of outbound, if it's not very well targeted and very strategic, is that you have to sell the product first and then the program, which is something very difficult to try to get somebody to just promote or talk about your product before they are sold into. And nowadays, they don't want just a salesperson selling the product. They want to convince themselves of the product. So that process needs to happen first before they become a partner.
So even before they're applying, there's this discovery and evaluation thing that has to happen. And, content marketing does a great job of positioning products out there. So that makes a lot of sense. Actually, I think, Emily, this would be an interesting one to ask you too. Have you ever written a blog post with the effort to get more partners into the Zapier program? Like, have you done some content around that, or any other tactics that you've seen where it's like, you got a lot of inbound, but you need to do this other thing too, to kind of reach more? Anything around reach that you can share that you've experienced over there?
Yeah, I mean, a lot for sure. Zapier is very kind of content focused. I think it's one of our key pillars of marketing. Our product is very interesting in that it is our partners. There's very little that is just Zapier. So for us, I think, Carolina, you mentioned this concept of selling the product before you sell the program. For us, that's entirely true. So I would say we really don't focus that heavily on the perks of the program itself, and more just the perks of the product. Our best partners are also our users. So that's kind of our content strategy too. And I'd say also our outbound strategy, if I'm thinking about, on this partner index that I referenced earlier, number, let's call it 31, that isn't on the platform yet, I'm looking to see in our backend who's a user so I can reach out to them, kind of find that internal advocate first.
Sweet. Yeah, there's one thing Zapier has shown that they're really good at is content. So I think that speaks volumes on kind of what you're saying there. And I will say, let me just see what this last question here is. And this is, we're coming towards the end of our acquisition section. So Ethan, maybe I can throw this one in your direction here. And it's really about, it's same concept here. It's about scaling this acquisition function. And this could be tactical. This could be like, how do you just deal with the quantity of things that you're seeing? Or maybe more like pinpoint, like how do you do this specific thing better? But maybe you could just share a little bit around, like, when you start thinking about systematizing the first step of the process, what have you learned, or what's worked for you around that for scaling out partner acquisition?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point. Right now, I think in 2020, Webflow had about 1,000 partner applications come through, specifically for our agency partner program. And that's great. We, kind of similar to, it sounds like what the rest of the folks on the call have done, created lead scoring and a way to evaluate and prioritize those partner applications that are coming in. But what I've been pushing and helping build on my team is really, we don't want to be left holding the bag when that inbound potentially dries up, or the business needs change. So we're thinking 2-3 years down the road, where's our enterprise team going to be? What type of partners will we need to have in 2 to 3 years to start supporting those folks? Especially as some of those partnerships, relationships with larger integration partners, larger systems integrators, the Accenture, Deloitte of the world, can take years to develop. We're needing to start thinking about that and start scaling what that acquisition strategy looks like now, and be able to create an ad hoc program to support that. To that extent, I think doing activities like account mapping, with those types of prospective partners makes a lot of sense. Understanding if we have targets of XYZ company, what systems integrators do they work with typically, what other technologies are in their stack, what integrations do we need to create to support their use cases in the future. So that's kind of my feeling around organic outbound or organic acquisition, is really going through the customer channel and figuring out who exactly we need to be working with to better support our customers in the long term.
Yeah, and if you have the luxury to just ask a customer, hey, do you work with a, this or this type of service provider? And they say, yeah, and maybe you can get an introduction through them. So just for folks thinking about where to begin this process. Okay, so we're kind of rounding out the end of our acquisition section, and I just want to make a quick call out to people who are asking questions. Thank you for doing that. And anyone who is a panelist that wants to, or excuse me, that's an attendee that wants to ask a panelist one of these questions, something that's top of mind for you or maybe tactical for your business, don't hesitate to use the Q&A functionality here in the webinar to ask away. We'll have some time at the end for that. And now we're going to kick off activation. So what comes next after we get a partner to basically say we're interested in working with you is getting them to essentially complete some milestones, whatever those milestones may be for your organization. So I guess the first question, maybe we'll go back through my screen here and jump back into Emily. You're up next for this. So what are some activities with new partners or like brand new folks who are joining that you generally see this has a big impact on their success down the road? Something that you're like, this is a good place to start. Let's start here.
Yeah, I guess I'll answer this on the platform side again. So we have, when we launch these partners that are kind of new in our ecosystem, we have kind of like a 5-step checklist to really ensure success. And for us, success means users that have authenticated that app and have set up we call it Zap, but it's an automated workflow, and turned it on and have success using it. So it's run. There's, like I said, kind of 5 things we're looking for. We're looking for help docs on our site that explain to the user how to set up the integration, how to use it. Help docs on their side that kind of say the same thing. We also are looking for some kind of co-marketing campaign. We have pretty automated, pretty standard templatized campaign on our end, and we kind of ask for something on the partner side as well. Then the other things that we ask for have to do with what we call Zap templates. They're pre-configured workflows that the partner sets up. Once they've set those up, we ask them to embed those Zap templates. So we have a little JavaScript widget that they can place anywhere in their product, on their blog, that will then kind of show users common use cases between Zapier and then their tool and another tool. And that's really how we drive success within our partnerships, kind of getting users to understand, this isn't a Zapier integration, really. It's an integration between Webflow and Typeform, right? And we're just kind of powering that. So kind of almost getting users to understand that it's not really Zapier, it's whatever tool they want to use Zapier with. And we found substantially higher rates of success with partners that will embed those app templates within the product where users are looking for that experience. So if you're talking about a CRM and you want to, upload a CSV into your mailing tool, adding those app templates in the import section of the product is really going to drive success for us.
And I think something for everyone who's listening to kind of note here is there's kind of 2 sides of the coin for everything. We have help docs, they have help docs. We're doing co-marketing, they're doing co-marketing. And this is the reciprocity that generally is the language of partnerships. And I like this content's so good, I'm taking notes here too while I'm listening. I'm like, this is great. But just to your point about the help docs thing, I mean, it can't be understated. Like if you don't have a lot of partner material today, you don't have the ability to run co-marketing, like maybe you don't have an embed widget, that's okay. Like everyone can probably come up with a help doc. If not, open up Google Drive and put something together for customer success. So these are just some smaller asks that might be a little bit easier. And that makes sense on the tech partnership side, why that would be so important to start the partnership off with. And now I'm interested to know a little bit from Carolina on, it's the same question, what are some activities that you might start with an agency partner that you've worked with that you're like, if we do this in the beginning or these couple things, we're going to see down the road that this partner is going to be way more successful. What do you think? Do you have anything like that you're doing systematically over there?
Yeah, for sure. So we have an onboarding process for agency partners. And in our case, we do know that the ones that complete the onboarding are more successful than the ones who don't, but also because we're working with value-added resellers. So yeah, they're helping us bring customers into Typeform, but then we're also recommending them to our customer base. So for us, it's super important that they go through the certification process that we have set up. And then what they care about the most is then to be in our directory, which is powered by PartnerPage. And of course, the certification process is always a process where everything stalls a bit, just because it takes a little bit of time and watching some videos and building a Typeform. So what we realize is that it has to be very reward-based. So we realize, okay, what are the things that partners care about the most? And then what are the things that we care about the most, and combine them. So for example, we figure out that a key functionality that partners needed in the product was to have access to their customer's account from their own account, so they don't have to log in and out and share passwords and anything like that. So we went back to our product team and we got them to develop that functionality. And then we only give it to them after they finish the certification. And then once that's over, then we hand over the agency access functionality. And then the next step is like, okay, now bring us the first customer. And then we promote you in the directory. So this kind of give and take has been the best way that we've managed to make progress together in the end, because we're bringing partners into the directory and then offering them to their customers. They're bringing us customers, and then we're managing to complete the onboarding.
That was an awesome answer. As someone who geeks out on partner programs, just like hearing that firsthand from you is really exciting. I'll say, just like for all the attendees, again, like that both sides of the coin, we're going to give them leads, but they're going to have to deliver leads to us. Or actually, you said it the other way around. They'll bring customers to us, but we'll send people their way because they sell services around your product. And probably we could spend an entire hour talking about acronyms and terms in the partner space, because there is no dictionary for this, but the value added reseller, the VAR, which is kind of an old school channel term, which we still use today, really saying that these folks do offer services and value around Typeform. So, and the other thing I loved, and I wish I had a visual for this, but it's kind of this idea of like an upward thing that's flat and then an upward thing that's flat. And this is time, on the x-axis. You have these partners that do something because you motivated them, it sounds like, hey, we'll give you access to this agency special functionality if you complete our training. So they make progress, and then you give them that thing. Then you hold another carrot and you say, hey, we'll put you in our directory if you do this thing. And that really comes down to what activation is all about. It's figuring out how to motivate folks and make it easier for them as they go through those milestones. So continuing through the questions there, Ethan, I think we're going to throw a couple hard ones your way, so get ready. And actually, I think this next one is a really good one for everyone to just hear a little bit about. And it's about announcing partnerships and like when and why would you do that? Obviously, if you're signing up 3,600 partners like Zapier, you might think, oh, we can't announce that many partners. Like, how could you possibly do that? But then I bet you, if you ask Emily, she'll say, no, like we can announce 3,600 partners because we do great co-marketing. So Ethan, I'd love to get your take on, what do you think and what have you experienced around announcing different types of partners and when to do it, and, what's worked for you just in terms of getting value out of that, if at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great question, and it's so subjective and difficult to have like a exact answer because it varies so much. I think number one, like starting with the customer and understanding what's the customer going to get out of this partnership. What is the customer going to get out of this partnership announcement? Is it a huge pain point solved that an integration is coming in to fix? Is it something that, we're going to see 50% of our customers go out and implement, on day one? Those are the obvious ones that are huge value drivers that we want to shout from the rooftops as much as possible. On the flip side, as we're talking to maybe even smaller partners in our ecosystem, we have some agencies that are, 10, 15 employees, but they're doing such really interesting, creative, innovative work on our platform, that the value that our customers can get out of seeing this work, seeing, the level of sophisticated development on Webflow is just immeasurable. So I don't think there is a right answer here. I think I always start with the customer and understand, what is our customer base going to get out of this? What's the get out of us, putting out this into market? And I'll flip it back to, the points that were made on the last co-marketing and give and get on the partnership side as well. Understanding what is the partner going to do to help promote this partnership announcement as well. If we have a partner that's going to go out in ad week and do a webinar or do a press release about it, that's really showing dedication on their end, that they're invested, that they're, are going to be a great partner in the future. So something where we can flip it around and also, take that and do that on our end as well.
Yeah, that reciprocity side, just doing a little bit on both sides. I guess I would love to ask you, Emily, if you have any thoughts on the same thing, maybe for either the tech or the expert side that you're dealing with today, just about how you announce partnerships and when and why you might do that.
Yeah, for sure. I'll answer on the platform side. I wish I had better answers on the agency side, but we're really still just kind of building and growing the program. So a lot of these I'm kind of taking notes on my side for future tips. So yeah, I think Ethan, you really hit the nail on the head. It kind of all comes back to the user. For us, we have kind of a backend tool that will measure and track user requests that come in through landing pages or through our support team. And, if a partner that's building an integration and launching an integration has user requests, that's a really good signal to us. Like, okay, well, we need to, at the very least, let them know that we have that integration. So we have kind of a checkbox that we'll check on the back end, and that'll shoot out an automated email. For bigger partners that are higher on the index, higher requests, bigger names, we'll do pretty custom co-marketing campaigns that just, I'd say again, align with the user's use cases and kind of what they're looking for. It really depends. We're launching a partner later next month that my team that is now just a team of one on the launches side, that's pretty much their full-time job, just launching this one partners and building out the co-marketing campaigns. So yeah, it really depends. User comes first always.
Yeah, and you guys have both done a great job of taking something very subjective and at least finding a starting point, which is what's going to benefit the people that we're trying to help the most, which are the customers that rely on us for our products and for the value we provide. So thank you both for that. Okay, just looking at some of our questions around activation, kind of flying through the list here. I like this question. It's a tricky one. It's almost like a trick question. It's about time to activation. And what it really is it's a question around metrics. And it's a question around, when we think of our well understood MQLs that turn into SQLs and, the time it takes to go from one point to the other in our funnel, we can slice and dice data and build an entire science around it. What are some of the thoughts that you have? And these are really high level because I don't, maybe you all have incredible partner dashboards with every single thing mapped out. My hunch is that you might want one and that you're working towards it, or maybe don't have it. But maybe, Carolina, this is a good question I can just run off you is, how do you think about the certain metrics that you want to track around a new partner and sort of getting them, time to activation being one that maybe you think about, like how long does it take to get them to actually do something? And how have you maybe once you've thought about that metric, done something different in your strategy as a result of it? Hopefully that's a good metric to start with. If there's any other ones that you think are more important than time to activation, we can certainly talk about those too.
Yeah, so time to activation is definitely something that we take into consideration. There are many different factors. So on our side, we realized that the LMS tool that we had for the certification was actually slowing down the activation process. So we took some action to change that and improve it. But then it depends also on the profile. So we are working with a lot of agencies that are solopreneurs, and it's very hard for them to just juggle everything that they have to juggle. So definitely on their side, maybe they're already bringing customers, but they don't finish the onboarding officially, or it takes them a little bit longer. And then we have other agencies that are bigger, they have a team, and then maybe it's easier for them to just have one person dedicated to complete the certification and make sure that, the whole onboarding process goes very smoothly. So yeah, I think that it's more like, okay, being a bit empathic also with your partners that are trying to juggle a lot of things at once. And then at the same time, trying to see what you can do to improve it, right? I think at the beginning, we even had like 2 different Typeforms that people had to fill out. And then of course, a lot of people drop off at the second one. So then we made that shorter. So finding different points and different things that you can definitely improve in your workflow to make it as smooth as possible for your partners to onboard and activate and just be up and running. But then also understanding that they all have different realities and situations. And yeah.
I love the use of the word being like empathetic with partners and like kind of putting yourself in their shoes. You could almost come up with a set of values for your partner strategy, independently of the company's corporate values. Well, maybe they'd be the same, but really saying like, hey, when we work together, we're gonna flex our empathy here and really try to understand if you're a solopreneur, a couple people in their garage with the dog, like building websites and just like carving out, value, or are you like a consulting firm, like a bigger one that has hundreds of employees and, or even thousands, if you talk about some of the big ones that Ethan was mentioning before. So that's I like that approach. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that too. And continuing down our list of activation here, this is an interesting one. And I think we'll kind of answer both questions. I'll ask you, Ethan, both in the same shot, which is, what do you do when you're working with a new partner and the interest just feels like it's kind of waning, or maybe they're not interested in promoting after you've said, hey, let's work together. Obviously we have these best case scenarios where partners are blowing it out of the water, which begs the question, what do we do when they're not? And the second part of that question might be, what are some ways to keep partners excited? Might be the solution to the what do you do when they're not excited question. And you can answer this for either side of your experiences, whatever kind of is calling you. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually going to go back to contentful times with this answer. I think it's very common in partnerships, and it's very easy for relationships to go cold or to just mean not aligned in terms of what you're trying to get out of the partnership. Specifically for us at Contentful, we were disrupting, a pretty big market space in content management and competing with the likes of Adobe and trying to go after some large systems integrators and digital agencies that were billing hundreds of millions of dollars in services with our competitors. And so really trying to convince them, and it's uphill battle, that you can also start building a business on Webflow. You can, not maybe reach that same revenue level, but it can be another weapon in your arsenal and another alternative for the right customers. And I think it's very difficult to understand what the point of, but when do we need to walk away? When do we continue driving? When do we actually, really try to keep making this partnership work? It's a very fine line, I think, on that side. And I always say, it's easier to get that first deal than it is to get the second and third more often than not. Usually that first deal is really, there's momentum behind it. Typically there's already a customer that's pushing a partner to engage and be activated on that side. But figuring out what's the repeatable motion, how do we actually do this at scale with other customers that this might be new for, I think that's the more challenging piece of this, and where you can really stall and relationships go cold on that. So number one, like where I try and navigate, you might be anchored within the wrong person within an organization. If it's a large company, you might just, be talking to the wrong person that, just doesn't have the same goals of the partnership as you. Or maybe you just misaligned on the value of the partnership early on in the conversation. So having kind of that, reset moment with the partner, figuring out, how do we actually navigate from here? How do we realign on what we want to get out and what our joint go-to-market motion is going to be? I think that's a hugely important one. And then, if you're struggling to really find the customers to apply that partnership with, it could be, just a sync on services. What's the unique value proposition that we're offering to customers with this partnership, either solutions partnership or integration partner? and be able to really market and tell that story a lot better than maybe what has been led to that kind of stall or that point where you're at the moment.
Yeah, great. Ton of nuggets of information there that would be really actionable. So appreciate that. Yeah, that was a great way to kind of think about navigating these situations. Which actually, on that point that you said about the first deal and the deals that come after, is a great segue into thinking about what it means to have retention for partners. And retention for partners can be, hey, they continue to be our partner, but that's not enough, right? We need them to do the thing. Like, what's the thing that we want to do together is grow and help customers. So we'll call retention sort of this idea of continually doing the thing, whether it's an integration partner that maybe does a series of activities, or it's a reseller/agency that continues to deliver value and services around the product. So we'll segue into retention there. And just like I did last time, I'll call out the Q&A section of the webinar. We've got some great questions that came in from the last time I did this. So just keep on asking your questions there if you have them. Or even if you don't, think up some good ones and ask them, because we love questions. And if we don't get to them all, we will answer as many as we can, and then answer the rest maybe on like Twitter or as a follow-up to this. So anyways, jumping into retention now, the kind of third part of our almost 4-part question series here. How do you get partners to continually do this particular thing that you're measuring them on? Maybe bringing new customers, or maybe advertising and promoting the partnership. And I think this is a great first question here. And maybe, Emily, I can ask you this one. And this is a pretty open-ended one, so you can answer it in a lot of ways. How do you help partners find new customers? What do you think?
Great question, Mario. Thank you for asking. I am so excited to be able to talk about our agency program now. So about 6 months or so ago, we purchased and implemented PartnerPage. And the goal of that was really to drive organic user requests that are looking to hire agencies to set up and support their Zapier accounts. We had a theory that there was a lot of organic kind of like requests for this. Zapier is an easy product, but it gets complex very quickly. And we have a pretty big support team that gets a lot of requests daily, a lot of tickets daily. So, we had a hypothesis that there's a lot of user demand. We had no idea. I think I remember saying, I hope we get 5-10 user requests a week. We're getting around 20 to 30 user requests a day. And that's, like I said, kind of early stages in the program, not a lot of marketing, not a lot of anyone talking about it. It's kind of just organically users looking on our site. So, those user requests are direct leads for our agencies and our experts. And oftentimes they're kind of smaller, at least to start, in terms of revenue for these agencies. But every once in a while, it'll be a really big name, a really big contract, and it makes meaningful impact to their business. So that's, I think, our primary incentivization method right now, at least.
Yeah, and actually, so appreciate you telling that story there, and happy that PartnerPage could play a role in that. And I think there's a really interesting kind of distinction here around if you think about what Ethan was saying with Webflow, and we think about the solopreneurs Carolina was saying, there's almost like a wave happening where folks are learning to build their businesses around tools like Zapier and Webflow and all these other tools like Typeform. And you can almost envision these folks coming to you for helping your ecosystem. And I've seen it in your directory. I've seen it in these websites these folks have. You go to their website and it's like, hey, we are the Zapier this, or maybe we're the Webflow that. And we've seen it played out with tools, other tools in the SaaS space, where they just built out a lot of opportunity for service providers who had expertise to come in there. That number is staggering, by the way, that you thought you would get about 5 a week would be successful, and it was 30 a day of requests for help.
Yeah, we weren't really ready, to be honest. But
yeah, what did you guys do internally when you discovered that? Was it sort of like, where did you party? Did you like sound the alarm? Both at the same time, I imagine.
Yeah,
what was the general feeling?
for sure. It was both at the same time. It happened at the right time, I'll say. You know, we implemented the new directory October last year, and that was right around kind of planning for 2021. So it was a great time to kind of go to our exec team and say, like, look at what we built. Now we need these resources to really go out and scale it. So, you know, fast forward to today, the program that I'm building is one of the 3 company objectives that we have for the year. And we're kind of going full in with building the tools that our agencies need to be successful with our users.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I think with that great question and answer about how to help partners find customers, maybe we'll jump into the next question, which is sort of around the level of involvement in helping partners close new business. So maybe Carolina, you can tell us, you know, you said you did some sales for a while, then you got into partnerships. I bet you know how to close some deals over there, or you've done that in the past. What is the right level of involvement for, you know, someone running a partner program to do or to be involved along with their partners in closing new business?
Yeah, it really depends. Depends a lot on, well, I guess that the relationship that you have with a partner, like how close it is, or if it's that the relationship is just starting and then they proactively ask for it, then if you do have bandwidth and you see that there's potential, then you maybe go for it. And I guess it also depends on the customer, right? So we do co-selling with our partners when it comes to enterprise plans. That's like as a standard, but with smaller deals, it depends. I remember when we were just starting with the directory, because we wanted to really understand the kind of leads that were coming from there. I did hand-holding with a few of our partners at the beginning, just to understand what the process would look like, or maybe like sales enablement material that we needed to build out for that specific stage. But yeah, I would say it depends.
Yeah, I'd say there's an interesting topic that you just brought up, which could probably be a whole hour, which is, you know, co-sell so that you can learn, really put yourself on the call and get in the weeds and learn a little bit. And the it depends is actually the perfect answer for this. And I think this kind of paints the picture for folks who are scratching their head saying, like, how do I systematize this? You mentioned something too, which I think is a trend. So I'll ask you a little bit about that. You do co-selling on every enterprise deal. I'm guessing there's a segment here where you guys have your enterprise, large logo or company that's targeted that you wanted to get. So the motion of co-selling there, because probably I'll ask this question. Why would you co-sell on the enterprise deals? What's the big driver for that? And how should folks thinking about this doing the same thing basically say, this is why we're going to co-sell our enterprise deals or not? Do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess the simple answer is that for enterprise deals, there are more stakeholders involved. And then on our side, we also need more stakeholders involved. So it's not just about, hey, this is Typeform, this is what it does. But then you also need to go through the security and the procurement process and negotiation of the contract. And all of that cannot be done just with the agency. So we need a person inside Typeform that is in the loop when that whole negotiation is happening. So that's one of the main reasons.
And I think that's super important for everyone to think about because, if you're closing big enterprise deals as a founder or an early sales employee at a company, and you're thinking about partnerships, you know how to talk to InfoSec, you know where you sit on the SOC 2 type 2 spectrum, and how your company does its encryption. Can you really enable an agency to repeat that for your product? And let alone, they probably have 11 other ones they work with. Can they even, manage to have that conversation? So
yeah. I think they don't want to either.
Do they even want to, nonetheless? And that actually is another benefit. I'll just throw this out there, which is you can offer co-selling to, the top partners. So you can say, hey, if you really do a great job with us, we'll be there for you on the bigger deals you keep bringing in. Again, I'm not sure on the partner benefits spectrum where that will rank compared to some of the other ones, but certainly something to leverage for folks who are looking for carrots to kind of dangle and kind of use to motivate partners. Okay, great answer. And I think that
I'm going to add a quick point to the co-selling motion as well. Especially we're building this motion as well at Webflow. And I like to remind not just our partner team, but our sales team, Our partner's job, day in, day out, isn't to sell Webflow. They're not, perfect in our sales process. They don't know, our security procurement process inside and out. And not just that, but when we're talking about a project that involves Webflow, we're a piece of the puzzle. We're not the entire stake. And so, being able to be this microservice and be kind of this microservice of a sales organization within that overall structure and service that the partner is providing, I think is super important. And that fits well into the tech side of co-selling motion as well. Your job is to sell the product, and their job is to sell services around it or to sell their integration on top of it and really extend that offering.
Yeah, I think the way you framed that up too, so thanks for sharing that too, by the way. The way you framed it up as a microservice almost is a great way to think it through as like anyone who's trying to figure out like how to framework this in their mind. And that's really interesting about how you've been building that out over there at Webflow, like just because it's the beginning of this motion. And I think even your enterprise approach at Webflow is, I don't know because I don't work there, but it's relatively new for the organization. And I'm guessing that means it's relatively new for the partner strategy too. So that's really exciting. Yeah, thanks for jumping in with that. And since I've got you here, maybe I'll ask you this next question too, which is maybe we'll just talk a little bit about, I like this question, tiers, partner tiers, rare metals, bronze, silver, gold, maybe not, maybe some other cool word. But what are the benefits, in your opinion, of tiering your partners based on performance?
Yeah, and this is something, again, we're so young in our partner journey at Webflow that we're currently building out as well, and then thinking about how do we approach this. In my past experience coming from Contentful, which is a very heavy enterprise focused organization, we had a group of select boutique amount of partners. We had our small book of business and partners that we worked with day in, day out. Coming to Webflow, it's not to the extent of a Zapier, where we have thousands of partners, but we do have, hundreds of partners. And, for me, thinking about where is my time best going to be spent, that's kind of how I think about this tiering of partners. There's a kind of a common stat that we look at in partnerships. 80% of your revenues comes from about 20% of your partners, or that kind of breaks down in that sense. And so figuring out, how can you best activate that 20%? How can you best recognize that 20% of your partners, and really, create incentive structure, create, partner program structure to enable them to be successful on that side as well.
Yeah, great point about the 80-20 rule, which actually, and I want to ask this question to every panelist here, so get ready. We're talking about tiers. Everyone talks about tiers at some point when they're building out their program. And, there's a stage when you do it and there's a right way to do it, maybe, or a wrong way. It's nothing subjective here. Maybe Emily, you could tell us, what are your experiences thinking about this with respect to partner programs that you've worked in?
Yeah, for sure. So we have tiers on both the platform and the agency side. Our platform tiers have been around since I want to say late 2017, maybe 2018. And it's an interesting question. Do they really drive results in partners, or are they more kind of nice to have? We have found that for kind of our middle tiers, we use the rare gold, so our silver and our silver and gold tiers, we do really see the right behavior being incentivized by the tiers. Most of the benefits are co-marketing benefits. But then we have this unspoken tier that's more of like our ecosystem partners. You think like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, that have dedicated strategic alliance partner managers. And that's really where we see kind of the right behavior being driven. It's more behind the scenes relationship alliance type work rather than what you see on our directory. For our agency side of things, we really have noticed a big uptick in success after implementing our tiers about 6 months ago. Really has started to drive the right behavior for us and helped us to reward partners that are willing to work with us. And I think that's the key, is unlocking benefits for partners that are willing to work for us, not necessarily, the biggest name, but so excited to partner with us. And that's where we've seen success on the agency side.
Awesome. Great thoughts there around, I mean, just hearing the driving behavior, that's what we're trying to figure out, and, you know, supporting behavior with our own efforts too, and making it easier for folks. And some folks are highly motivated. They'll, you know, bleed the colors of your partner program the second they join, and other folks have bigger fish to fry, and they'll come back when they can. So Carolina, I'd love to get your take on this too, because I think tiers are just, you know, an interesting thing to dive into, since we're talking about the retention side of this. What have you experienced around sort of tiering partners, and, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly, if there's any bad? You know, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we haven't seen anything really bad coming from tiers. And not only it helps drive behavior, but it also helps set expectations, right? Before we had the tiers, we often had just requests from partners of, hey, you know, I'm doing this with this partner program, can we do this with as well? And we had the tiers unofficially, so we had them, but they weren't published yet. And yeah, it was good to have them published and then just say like, well, these are like the tiers that we have now in the program. So when you reach this goal, then we will happily do that with you, instead of having to say like, it's not the right time, but there was nothing written about when was the right time. So I think to set expectations, it was really helpful.
Yeah, totally. Not to be underrepresented in the conversation around motivation is the target. You know, where are we aiming and why? And, you know, what's the expectation around getting there in a certain window of time and certain volume of business? Awesome answers from everyone here on that. We do have, so we have some questions in the Q&A that I want to make sure we get to, but I do want to at least ask one question from our sort of last section of questions, which is really just about, this is something you'll all appreciate. Where do you find great partner managers? And, you know, since y'all are great partner managers, maybe you can talk a little bit about either A, where you would go to find a great partner manager, or where you came from, so people know how to find you. But maybe Ethan, like, how do you think about this when it comes to finding great partner managers? Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've had about 6 open headcount for partner managers since I joined Webflow, so it's definitely top of mind all day, every day for the most part. I think it really depends on what type of partner role you're looking to fill, or what type of partner motion you're looking to build out. You know, my background was as a direct sales rep prior to joining Contentful and jumping into partnerships on that side. I think that's really beneficial, especially as you start getting into the co-selling motion. As soon as you start getting into being able to really assist on deals, if you have an internal sales team as well. So, you know, having a background, you know, in that kind of sales capacity, or, you know, folks that have done both roles in the past, I think makes a lot of sense. On the other side, you know, I think more and more folks that are in technical partnerships, integration partnerships, someone needs to be a jack of all trades. And so, you know, folks that have had product experience in the past, folks that have, you know, done more technical selling in the past, I think, you know, you need to be able to have that level of conversation with your counterpart. You might not have a sales engineer on every single call. So being able to speak to both sides, the business value, technical value, I think is super beneficial. So on that side, I typically look for folks from a partner-focused organization.
Awesome. Yes, that's a lot of headcount. Anyone listening here looking to work in partnerships at Webflow? I'm sure everyone on this call wants to hire, but anyways, small plug for you. I know you can't do it.
Yeah.
So maybe, you know, I know we want to get to these questions. Carolina or Emily, do either of you feel strongly about answering the where do good partner managers come from question? Or do you both want to? Good to go. Okay. Carolina, you got any thoughts on that? Where would you go today if you were looking for your next partner manager?
I would say the network. So there are a few networks, but just your network is always a good place to start. Yeah, and then I think partnerships more and more have bigger networks, just because we need to all work together and with each other.
That makes a lot of sense. And I guess, you know, nowadays with LinkedIn, the feed there starts to get mine gets more and more partnership content focused every time I log in. So good for them for figuring out the algorithm. Okay. So it sounds like, training folks internally is an option if you find a salesperson who's got the right, energy or wants to do this thing as a next step in their career. Also hiring externally from within your network. So there's both sides of that there as well. So I'll flip it over now to the Q&A. We've got some great questions here from a couple folks, and I'll just start with the last one that was asked. So what are the key KPIs to measure for technology partnerships? And then the second one says, how do you track and measure influenced revenue? Wow, I'm sure that second question could be an entire month. How do you track and measure influenced revenue? But since you got so many platform partners over there, Emily, maybe we can just pick your brain a little bit on KPIs you measure around tech partnerships or your platform partners, that maybe top 3 that you're really looking at every day.
Yeah, for sure. So I think I mentioned one, which is just the active users that they have using the integration. The other that we're kind of tracking is how much monthly recurring revenue is really tracked to the users that are on the integration. And then the third is how many errors or bug requests or feature requests we have for the integration. We call it a health score. So I'm really looking at how healthy is the integration overall. How do we track and measure influence revenue? We spent 4 years building an internal multi-touch attribution tracking solution. This is built by our data team of about 30 or so, working to really make sure that we're accurately attributing revenue. So yeah, not an easy solution. There certainly is easy solutions out there, but ours is a little bit more complex.
The journey never ends when it comes to attribution, as every marketer knows.
True.
Where does the money go? So I think some great points though around how you are measuring the technology partner side. And I guess we'll just jump to another question here in the interest of time.
Can I follow up with that one real quick as well, Mario?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Just specifically because we are actively reevaluating our KPIs for our partner program, specifically on our technology and marketplace partnerships. We went from a direct, charging for each integration, charging for each template purchased in our marketplace, and measuring our KPIs around that, to thinking about more, what does somebody that is using a partner, somebody that is using a template or a quick start package from our marketplace, what does that do to their activation rate? Does it make them more sticky as a customer? Does it help them get more deep in the platform faster? And what we found is at least double the activation rate for folks that are using those types of partnerships, those types of starters. And so really focusing more on how do we actually do more of that, and get really, really deep with those activation driving activities.
And that right there is a great time for me to just repeat the name of this webinar, which is Partner or Perish. I didn't even say it at the beginning, but if you're really thinking about the data, a lot of our businesses are data driven, or at least we try to be as much as we can. And as we start to look at these numbers, there's anecdotal evidence that's popping up all over the place that says, hey, someone who has this many integration partners connected, or had a service provider help them, or both, sticks with the platform longer, spends more money, gets excited, and, does referrals. So whatever the metrics are that you want from your customers. So, we're not going to say that if you don't partner, you're going to perish, but just keep in mind, partner or perish. It's the name of the webinar. So one last question, just so we can wrap it all up. And this has been wonderful. I'm seriously scribbling notes down as I listen to you guys, because it's been such a great conversation. And I think, Emily, you may even see this question here, because it says follow-up question for Emily. I think it's great to just ask this one, how many Zap templates does a partner need to start with when they become a partner? I'm not sure if you have a quick answer to that one or not, but since it's targeting you, I figured we could let you answer it while you're on the air.
Sure, yeah, we typically ask for 10. That varies if it's a very specific kind of tool and very specific use cases. But typically, in our automated emails and on our launch team, we'll ask for 10.
Cool. Nice round number, and we can wrap it up with that. So thank you, Ethan, Emily, and Carolina, for sharing your expertise, experience, and wisdom on partner strategy and tactics.